First, the master behind the monsters, special effects genius, Ray Harryhausen.
Hello, I'm Ray Harryhausen, stop-motion animator.
For me as a child, there were all the other movies, and then there were Ray's movies. They were the films that looked different, whether it was the Sinbad films, or Jason and the Argonauts, or 20 Million Miles to Earth, or whatever.
Ray's films always stood out as having better characters and performances of the characters and creatures in them than any other movies that were being made at that time. The creatures seemed to be alive, and that was what was compelling about it.
Ray was trying to put on the screen things that people hadn't seen before. I became a great fan of stop motion, probably without even knowing really what it was.
Ray Harryhausen is one of cinema's legendary figures.
And fingers. And the fingers.
His films inspired many of Hollywood's leading special effects artists and directors.
I think there was a period when I just got into my early teens where I started to appreciate that there were people who were behind the camera in the filmmaking process and who were the artists, and you start to track the names and try to figure out, what does this guy do? Who is this Ray Harryhausen guy? What is stop motion animation? And you start to educate yourself as a fan verging on wanting to be a filmmaker yourself.
I just put it on myself like a marshmallow.
I used to study Ray's films a lot and see how he did it. I even went to Spain where Some Voyage of Sinbad was done and walked on the beach that the Cyclops was on to get some idea of how big the area was and how far back the camera could be to get the actors and the Cyclops or whatever in the same scene. I could study him, and I could figure out sort of how he did it.
When people say, when did you become a special effects guy? I'm not a special effects guy, I create characters. And hopefully emulate somewhat what Ray Harryhausen has given to us all.
Long before the animatronic and the computer-generated dinosaurs of Jurassic Park, Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion art brought prehistoric creatures back to life.
Dinosaurs were my first love. I used to have my father drive me out every 2 or 3 weeks to see these bubbling tar pits where they got all the bones. In the museum, of course, they had a lot of skeletons that they retrieved from the tar pit, which made it all the more interesting, I thought.
That's your gun
And the King Kong wall was out in Culver City on the back lot of Cathay. I used to ask my dad to take me out there so I could see the wall of King Kong. So King Kong played a very important part in my career.
The Oscar-winning fusion of stop-motion animation with live-action photography in King Kong made a lifelong impression on the young Californian.
I saw King Kong in 1933 when I was 13 years old, very impressionable. And of course I didn't know how it was done at that time. Stop motion was secret. And they kept it hidden for a good many years. And a friend of my father's worked in the studio at RKO, and he told me how it was done. And I got intrigued and started doing it as a hobby in my back garden, in my garage.
Ray Harryhausen came to me in 1939, and he had already started animating, and at that time he had a brontosaurus animation model that he had done when he was just 13 years old. As a matter of fact, it's the first example of his work that he ever gave me. It's right there, the brontosaurus created by Ray Harryhausen when he was only 13 years old.
My first dinosaur, which was a brontosaurus, it had one of these lamps that have a neck that stays put. I used that for the dinosaur's neck, and that was quite a thrill to see it move. Finally, it developed from a hobby into a profession.
Harryhausen's movie apprenticeship took on many different roles, from service in an army film unit during World War II to stop-motion fairy tales.
Finally, Hansel began to break off pieces of bread and drop them along the path. "See, Gretel," said Hansel, "when our basket is filled with berries, we shall follow the trail of breadcrumbs back to our house."
And then, in 1949, Harryhausen received an invitation from his idol, King Kong creator, Willis O'Brien, to work on another giant ape movie, Mighty Joe Young. But stop-motion in big-budget Hollywood features like Mighty Joe would soon be considered too expensive by the studios. And for the next 10 years, Ray Harryhausen was forced to practice his art in the wilderness of science fiction movies.
Nice.
I think the thing that impressed me the most as
Tiny
a
head.
kid, very young kid, when I saw Beast of 20,000 Fathoms was the special effects.
Special.
I probably was not
Nice.
following the story,
Nice.
and certainly the
Nice.
acting I could care less about, but to see that creature walking down the streets of New York City in such an animated style, so interesting in its motions, it was pretty neat.
In fact, there's a lot more attention paid in some of these pictures than there were to ape pictures of the period. A lot of the stuff with the Emer in 20 Million Miles to Earth has a lot of scenes in it that are pretty remarkable in terms of creating from nothing but this little sculpture, an actual creature that seems to have a personality.
My gloves. Where are my gloves?
Before 2001: A Space Odyssey, before Star Wars, science fiction and horror were very disreputable genres. They were either late-night fodder or low-budget, cheaper, poverty row kind of pictures. And in a way, that was the world that Ray belonged to. But that's part of his charm as well. Of such stuff is cults made.
Where is that? Okay.
In my collection, I have two famous films of his.
They're
One
so
is Earth
small
versus the
and
Flying Saucers. And then there's The Came from Beneath the Sea. And, right here I have, there's the bridge from It Came from Beneath the Sea. It was attacked by an octopus.
It Came from Beneath the Sea was the brainchild of Charles Schneer, a young Hollywood producer. The film would mark the beginning of a professional relationship between Schneer and Harryhausen that was to last for more than a quarter of a century.
I got word from a friend of mine that this young man at Columbia Studios wanted to make a film about a giant octopus pulling the Golden Gate Bridge down. So that intrigued me, and he made arrangements for me to meet Mr. Schneer.
Thought this is going to be huge. This cannot fail. I think it was the first day of filming. One of the montage shots, which was four guys in full dress, backpacks, running around with traps in their hands. I had been sort of setting up the shot, and here they came as a group together That was the first time I saw them all dressed up in a real location with the stuff. And I had this extraordinary shiver down my back. It was an image I had never seen before, and it was an image that just seemed to be right.
It seemed so funny on the page, and we just knew how the casting would work out. We trusted each other so implicitly because of our mutual training at Second City.
There was a great comfort in working with these guys because there was a shorthand involved, but more than that, there was the comfort that you didn't have to watch your back.
Working with Ivan as a director and having confidence in him, it allowed me to focus on my work as an actor, but also on my work as a writer, like just doing fixes every day on the set, or participating in the improvised material, or helping the other actors improvise stuff.
There's something very strange about that man. Listen, I'm usually very psychic, and I have a terrible feeling that something awful's gonna happen to you.
Cut! Don't go away. When we return, we'll show you what goes into the filming of just one high-action stunt scene of a motion picture. When the making of Terminator returns right after this. And action! Rarely do viewers ever get the opportunity to witness the painstaking preparation and special effects production that goes into just one action scene of a motion picture. We're about to show you in capsulized form the production efforts of over 50 crew members during 2 nights of shooting for a scene that will last approximately 90 seconds in the finished film. Now, scenes are shot in segments. This means that each scene in the picture is usually shot from 2 or 3 different angles. Well, in this one scene, Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn will be filmed at least 3 times from at least 3 different angles. And who said being a movie star was fun and glamorous?
Well, the scene in general consists of a chase on foot down an alley where the guy and the girl are running from the killer cyborg from the future, and presumably he can gain on them because he's faster than they are. So the hero's got to come up with something fast. So he uses his shotgun to blow up the gas tank of a car, which creates a sort of wall of fire, and he jumps in his car and starts backing up, and Arnold's character, the Terminator, comes leaping through the fire and punches through the windshield to get the girl.
If for Siren had I distracted like the video and Sun had and poor Sun had, okay?
Of the footage was, so when it loops, it kind of glitches his head slightly. But from what I've heard, Siren Head actually walks in stop motion, so I mean, it kind of works for the character. If I was trying to do something a little bit more detailed or close up, I probably would have tried it again. But since I shrunk Siren Head really small and put him really far in the distance, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Though some people did notice.
And they're up to no good again.
I understand your pain, but putting the faces of people may not be in your best interest.
I got a great idea for an anniversary special about your favorite.
They're stopping the work.
I'm not part of you anymore.
They are wanted for the murders of at least 5 people. It's gonna be like old times.
Who is this? This is someone who knows who you are, who your brother is.
What do you want?
I thought you wanted to do a big story on this. What the hell is going on here? He wants to grant you an interview.
I'm excited.
The creator of Basket Case
What's in the basket?
brings you Basket Case 2.
and the Argonauts is our favorite picture. I think it was the best picture we did. I think it had highly imaginative sequences. When you talk about a seven-headed hydra, when you talk about skeletons rising out of the ground, these are memories that you don't really forget. They're totally memorable, and they don't remind you of any visual thing that you've seen.
This monstrous figure was only the beginning of the film's wonders.
In the original story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, there was a character in it called Talos. Although he was not as large as we depicted him in the picture. He was only 8 feet high. When I started the design process for the sequence, I felt we could get much more menace if he could be about the size of the Colossus of Rhodes. And this became a great opportunity to combine the concept of the Colossus of Rhodes with the Metal Man. And I had to make his movements very stiff and ungainly because he was supposed to be made of metal. So we put the sound effects of creaking joints and creaking metallic sounds scraping together to give that eerie effect.
Spectacular as he was, Talos was fairly simple to create, compared, say, to the Hydra, who guards the Golden Fleece. Easy to imagine a seven-headed monster, fiendishly difficult to animate him. Todd Armstrong, playing Jason, had the easy job. He only had to slay the monster. Ray had to bring it to persuasive life.
Dinosaurs. They were my passion. I chose a cave bear, I think, to simplify it. I had him back in my mind to do a film called Evolution, showing the history of the world. And I thought I would start with the cave bear as a
Nice.
Once they got ducked and wet, when we wanted to reshoot, we put them through a hot room, very hot. We're glad to get back into the cool water. I couldn't afford time.
Manda mensagem pra sua filha, agora ela tá arrumando confusão em parente do Dudu, Benamente. Ela tá lá nos Estados Unidos, mas ela tá arrumando confusão com ele lá. Manda mensagem pra ela,
He had a white sweater. Underneath this was a proper suit. So he was warm. Actors are very sensible about things like that. Work it out.
It could be done on the lake without the people swimming around. One of the shots just as the ship went down. And it could be done accurately on the lake because the landing was so smooth. It was like a lake that way. That's one of the reasons that the accident happened, because there was no wind at all. Nothing to kick up a little surf on the base of an iceberg. So the actual facts played right into the dramatist's hands by having a sea that was as calm as a lake in England.
The lifeboats were identical to those of the Titanic, and I was fortunate to have the services of Captain Grattage, who was captain of the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth. and who had joined the Cunard Line in 1914. Joseph Boxall, fourth officer of the Titanic, was also my technical advisor throughout the picture.
On filming, they were extremely lucky with the weather. But it was cold when the Titanic went down at night.
Take this back to ball beats. I get back to Godzilla and the series and other series. Bye.